I printed counterfeit money and used it to pay for services at erotic massage parlors. This all took place in one night about 15 years ago. I took a real $100 bill and scanned both sides of it into my computer. Once it was on my computer, I used a program, I think it was called CorelDRAW or something like that, to tweak any places that didn't look quite right to my eyes. I had a color printer at the time. I printed one side and then reinserted the paper and printed the other side. This part actually took a few tries because it kept getting out of alignment. Once I was able to print the front and back sides reliably, I printed out several pages of the bill. I then used a paper cutter to precisely cut out each of the bills. The result was a bunch of fake money that looked pretty good but felt very much like fake money to the touch. So I wadded them all up into a ball and then smoothed them out. I did this several times for each bill until the paper softened up and they felt more authentic. They never felt truly authentic though. Most people would have recognized them as fake immediately upon touching them. And this is where the evil starts. I recognized the fact that anyone who lived here for any length of time would know they were fake. I also knew that there were many late-night massage parlors in the area where most of the girls were from China and spoke very little English. The way it worked is like this: you enter the establishment and ring the bell. A girl comes to greet you and takes you to a little dimly lit room and asks how long you want to stay. $40 for 30 minutes or $60 for 60 minutes. This is just the base price. I'd tell the girl I wanted to stay for 30 minutes and then hand her one of the fake bills. She'd take it, and come back with $60 change. Then, I'd make up some reason why I couldn't stay. Like suddenly feeling guilty about being there and lying to my girlfriend or just being there in general. And so I'd take my change, apologize for wasting their time and tell them to keep the $40 as compensation. I did this several times in one night and walked away with over $400. I should be clear about one thing though, I didn't always work. There were several times I'd hand the girl one of the fake bills and she would recognize it as fake. When that happened I would feign surprise and blame someone who doesn't exist for trying to rip me off. I'd apologize for wasting their time and move on to the next one. This little scam worked surprisingly well at the time. On the last one, I decided to use the change they brought me to pay for a happy ending. Once it was all said and done, I had a pocket full of real money that wasn't there when the night started and a free rub and tug. I stole hundreds of dollars from stores to cover up where my money was going when I was a drug addict, and I've never told anyone. I will preface this saying I am sober now and doing better, but what I did when I was an addict is something I could never tell my family. So I became addicted/abused ecstasy. People say it isn't addictive, but I have never struggled more getting sober. Even nicotine and weed were easier. After a few months of using, my mom started asking what I was spending my money on as she could see my bank account being empty all the time. I panicked and said I bought makeup and she believed me. The next day I went to H&M and proceeded to steal more than $100 worth of merchandise. I showed my parents what I had bought and that was the end of the conversation. The following months I would steal every time I was out: makeup, clothes, food, electronics. Anything I could show them to keep their suspicions away. My addiction got bad soon later and I ended up in the hospital, and now I'm 3 months clean. The guilt is still there and I still have drawers of stolen stuff I can't bring myself to use. This is a secret my family cannot find out, as they are already so disappointed in me because of the drugs. I am so thankful I never got caught. Anyways, that was my confession. Maybe some of you can relate.
What is something you did once and never again? Warning, don't do anything in this video. I stayed at my sister's place one night, and we for the life of us couldn't find the vacuum cleaner to blow up the spare mattress. So I hit on the bright idea of using the car exhaust to blow up the mattress. Back then the car used leaded petrol. As a rule, I sleep with the windows and door closed, so damn lucky. Woke up next morning in hindsight, luckily with the mattress a half flat and the room smoggy, but being low to ground near door. The draft under it keep me alive again in hindsight. Hung over and zipped my zipper before I was ready. Mixed milk and orange juice because I thought it would taste like a creamsicle, not make me projectile vomit. Carolina Reaper infused gummy bear. I almost called for an ambulance. Legitimately thought I was going to die covered in sweat, poop, and vomit. Put pizza wrapped in foil in the microwave when I was 10, thinking it will warm up quicker. It surely did by lighting on fire 3 seconds after I turned it on. Tried to intervene during a street fight. Got popped for mitrables. Assumed the green stuff on the sushi tray was avocado. Fried bacon naked.
I spent 9 years addicted to meth and used to let my drug dealer and his friends fuck my ass in exchange for drugs. My wife doesn't know. I don't know how to tell her or even say it out loud. I thought he was my friend, but I see now I was literally a piece of meat to him. We were together for almost 10 years. I don't really think I'm gay, I think I was just so addicted to meth that I didn't care as long as I got more. I started at 19 and got hooked. I ended up losing everything. My relationship with my parents because I stole from them and was just an asshole overall, my friends, my girlfriend at the time, my job, my dignity and self-respect. After about a year or so, once I lost my job and got kicked out, he offered to let me stay there. I didn't have any money for drugs and I remember begging him for a fix and he told me to suck his dick, so I did and he gave me some meth. Eventually it evolved into me getting regularly gangbanged in exchange for drugs. This went on for about 7 years until one day he had a heart attack and died at 42. I was homeless for a time and eventually got help, went to a shelter and rehab, got clean, got a normal job and met my wife. I've tried to tell her so many times but I've always been so scared she'd leave me. We've been married for 7 years and have 2 wonderful children and we're so happy. I've never told anyone in my life about my past or even said the words out loud. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I even want to. I just try to forget my shame and I don't think I'm strong enough to tell her. I'm such a coward.
I paid someone to write my admissions essay and now I'm heading to campus tomorrow morning. Okay guys, I know I'm going to get some hate for this one, and rightfully so. I'm not looking for anyone to make me feel better, I just want to vent and I'm too afraid to tell my mom. Early this year I was stressing out hard about college admissions. My mom and dad didn't go to college, immigrants, so I was going to be the first one in our family to go. They wanted me to apply to more than 10 colleges, some of them truly elite. Between work, school, COVID, volunteering and so much other shit, I barely had time to sleep, let alone write admissions essays for that many universities. I was suffering from severe writer's block, and I was talking to my friend about it. They told me there's a website that can write essays for you and they'd used it before. Not for admissions, but for some econ homework and stuff. Anyway, I honestly thought all writing services were known scams. I'd seen TikToks about people getting scammed or lied to. But she swore this service was different and so I figured I would at least consider it. It's called Killer Papers. Anyway, long story short, I ended up working with one of their writers who helped me answer 3 of the questions for the Common App and I was blown away. It was way better than anything I'd written before, even with AP Lit being on my resume. I still remember submitting the questions like they were a risky text and practically slammed my laptop shut after hitting submit. Almost 9 months later, I'm moving in tomorrow. I know a lot of kids cheat, but the guilt has been tearing me up. Just glad to get this off my chest.
6 years ago I switched my wife's cat with a more well-behaved lookalike. 6 years ago, I swapped my then-girlfriend now wife's cat with a more well-behaved lookalike. She had an all-black cat that was extremely aggressive. It scratched everyone, hissed at everyone, and didn't use its litter box half the time. My wife insisted she could get it to behave better. One week she went out of town to visit her family and I was supposed to go to her apartment and feed it. The first night I went over, it scratched the shit out of my arm. I joked to the cat that it's not special and I'll replace it if it scratches again. The joke stuck with me until I had thought about it enough that it wasn't a joke. The next morning I went to the local animal shelter. Found an identical cat who was already litter box trained and acclimated to people, but was a little skittish. Its old owner died of a heart attack and the animal shelter people said they think that's why it was skittish. But overall, it was a lot friendlier and better behaved, and the skittishness would help it resemble the original cat. So I adopted it, took it to my wife's apartment, settled it in, then drove her original cat to an animal shelter a town over. I was paranoid my wife would find out if I took it to a local one. It's been 6 years since then. We got married 4 years ago. We still have the swapped cat. It answers to the original cat's name. My wife knows nothing. She loves this cat and brags about how much better behaved it is. Every time I see it, I feel like a total piece of shit. Edit, for the people saying the other cat was likely euthanized by the shelter, I just double-checked and the shelter I dropped it off at was and still is a no-kill shelter. I shoplifted at the grocery store out of sheer hunger and desperation. Several months ago, my husband and I hadn't eaten in a day and a half. Bills to the ceiling, broker than broke. We were starving. Told him I'd go to the grocery store and get us some stuff for the next few days until one of us got paid. They had a buffet to go bar. We had $15 combined in our checking account and the power was scheduled to be shut off the next day. The food was priced by weight in the to-go container. It was a lot of food. I mean a lot. Enough to get us both through 2 to 3 days. Meats, chicken, beef, salads, veggies, fruit, pasta, cheese, I mean whatever I could stuff in that box. Could barely keep it closed. Had to carry it with 2 hands. I had a plan but didn't know if it would work. But I had to give it a go. I set it down on the scale at checkout. $47. I panicked. Silently. But quickly made a swift decision. Picked the box up, so the screen would clear. Then barely touched the box down on the scale. I mean barely. Only the corner touching. Keeping the other hand under it so it looked like the box was just sitting there. $5 and change. Quickly moved it to the bagging area. Never picked up my head to look around as to not draw attention. Had to double bag it, it was so heavy. Slid my card praying it wouldn't decline. Success. Ditched the receipt and came straight home. We ate in the dark for the next 2 days and gave our dog scraps. I just threw my autistic son of 30 years onto the street. No regrets. He is mid-high functioning. In middle school, he was I would say about above average. He was a math prodigy, made up his own language, aced his classes and was a whiz, although socially stunted. Then puberty hit, he stopped going outside, and he started destroying his and me and the wife's property. We loved him enough to let it slide though, and he lived with us along with the occasional stay at a psych ward. Yesterday he killed our family cat after having a meltdown due to us trying to take his computer away after me and my wife caught him looking at anime hentai of girls who looked to be about 5. He threw my prized high school football trophy, wherein I won state, at the poor thing, causing its skull to split and its brains to spill out. I just about had it with them, wailed on them, threw him on the curb, and tossed his computers and gaming systems with him and told him if he ever came back I would kill him. Haven't seen him since. I nearly poisoned my coworker a few years ago because they would steal my lunches on a daily basis. So my coworker would steal my lunch for weeks. My lunches were expensive and homemade, so it attracted lunch stealers. I knew that they were allergic to nuts. One day I prepared my lunch with nuts in them and they, of course, stole it, ate it, and their face blew up like a pufferfish and had to be rushed to the hospital. It was a pure accident, but they learned their lesson. My friend and I were paid to steal a sign and got caught. My friend 16 meters, and I 18 meters, are both almost out of money so we approached our older friend who always has a job. He said he would pay us to steal a sign out in the woods. The city just chopped down a bunch of trees and he needed the private property sign gone so he could go in and load as much wood as possible. We went out wheeling one night and he brought us to the spot but my friend and I were too drunk to realize he was talking about government property and a government sign. We go out the next day in the middle of the night in my old car. Our older friend told us the road the sign was on has cameras so we removed my back plate about a mile away and we're also going to remove my front plate but I forgot it's not screws it's bolts on the front. We backed into the road and I sat in the car waiting for my friend. We had to cut the sign in half since it was pretty long and my old car isn't big. I was wondering what was taking so long so I go out to check on my friend and I see that the handsaw broke. He tried to use the serrated part of his knife but then his knife broke. I ended up holding the sign while he used the piece of metal off the handsaw trying to cut the sign as fast as he could. About 10 minutes later a truck pulled up on the main road and sat in front on my car for a few seconds, most likely to write down my plate, then pulled in next to my car. My friend's girlfriend came with us and got out of the back seat to see what the woman in the truck had to say. She told us we were on private property and had to leave then left. As soon as she was gone down the main road my friend stood up, jumped on the sign and it broke. We put everything in the trunk and drove back to town in the opposite direction. As we were driving back to town the same truck passed us probably looping around to see if we were still there. When we were unloading everything is when we finally realized the sign is government property and we just committed several felonies. A week later the sign is hidden off my property, we aren't wearing the same clothes we did that night for a while, my old car is chilling out of sight, and I finally calmed down. The lesson learned from that experience: always bring a backup saw. I purposely caused a massive horse stampede with terrible injuries when I was in elementary school, and everyone still thinks it was an accident. This story is even crazier than it sounds. When I was in first grade, I was that kid who wanted to live in the forest, be a werewolf, be a feral human etc. I was weird basically. I was also a huge horse girl and was in horseback riding lessons. My ultimate dream was to run away into the forest and live on my own, hunting and gathering and other stupid things like that. One day, before a trail ride at lessons, I came up with a plan to steal a horse, ride it into the surrounding woods, and disappear. I remember feeling slightly uneasy because I was assigned a different horse than my usual one when the day came but I had already committed to my plan. We started riding and when we got deeper into the forest, I vividly remember thinking to myself it's now or never and I kicked the horse with my heel to make it go faster, attempting to lead it with the reins off the path. Unfortunately, this backfired, and the horse reared up on its hind legs, taking off at an insane speed and leading the other horses with it. I was barely hanging on and remember how bad it hurt to have the horse rattling my spine around as it galloped. Shortly it kicked me off and I spun out onto the ground, laying there and watching all the other horses with little girls barely hanging on jumping above me like Mufasa in the antelope stampede. My jaw dislocated and I couldn't close my mouth and my spine felt like it had been ripped apart, and my face was completely dripping in blood from scraping along the trail. Along the trail I could see other girls scattered around, similarly bloodied and crying. After a long while of laying there, someone came by on a four-wheeler with a trailer attached and piled all of us crying elementary girls up into it. When I got back to the home base my dad told me that they saw the horses running at insane speeds with no girls attached to them at the end of the trail and had to send the guy out to get us. It scared the shit out of them and the trail instructor said there must have been something that spooked the horses and caused the stampede, and they compensated us with free passes to come back for rides in the future. I still have a messed up jaw and back from the incident, and for a long while of my childhood I had a scarred face in many photos. It was a crazy incident that scared my parents to death, and I feel terrible for the stress it caused them, especially because I was a rather sickly child with a lot of physical health concerns. To this day, nobody knows I did it on purpose. Everyone thinks it was an accident and caused by outside forces, but I know that it was all my secret plan to live out my feral child dreams, and I will never tell. I threw a big rock at someone that caused that person to get surgery and no one knew it was me. For context, I was 11 and at that time, my family and I would always go to my grandparents' house and when I was there, me and my cousins would always sit at the porch and take walks across the street but one day a fight was caused between us and my grandparents' neighbors' kids. It was a really big fight to the point everyone started throwing rocks at each other. I almost tripped on a big rock and thought it would be good to use against them, so I threw the rock at one of my grandparents' neighbors' kids and I swear I heard a crack in her head. The kid was crying and I really felt guilty and felt my stomach hurting but I was immature, to the point I pinned it on one of my cousins and he kept telling everybody he didn't do it and he was constantly getting punished for it and I always feel guilty for what I did every time I remember this. My mother-in-law drank my ball juice and my, now, wife doesn't know. About a year and a half ago I saw a TikTok video about how if you dip your balls into pineapple juice you can taste it. This piqued my interest because we always had a carton of pineapple juice in the fridge due to my girlfriend's pregnancy cravings. I did Googling and it was supposedly true and it said that we have taste buds in our balls. It can't be true I thought to myself, thinking it was another thing that's dangerous for you to be trending at the time. And 2021 me was desperate for any clout even if that meant harming myself doing so. In fact if I did this I would probably get more fame from it. No pain no gain. I ran straight downstairs into the fridge and poured the juice. As nobody was at home at the time. I learned the answer squatting in the middle of the kitchen, pineapple in hand. I heard the key to the door rattle. I quickly scrambled to pull my trousers up and help with the shopping, leaving the glass on the counter. My mother-in-law rushes past me sweating in the heat wave. I carry the shopping into the baby's room. I walk into the kitchen humming a song that had been stuck in my head at the time. My heart drops. There stood my mother-in-law drinking my ball-infused pineapple juice. They both looked up confused to my sudden silence. I just forced a smile and went to help cook dinner horrified. They still don't know to this day. I don't know how to tell them. Should I confess? I once did a dine and dash at Denny's. I had no money and no food and was tapped for 2 days. I had no food and no money and it was 2 days before I was going to get more. I went the rest of the day without eating, then the next day had a large breakfast at Denny's with no intention of paying. I asked for more pancakes, then as soon as she left, I casually left and never went back. Fast forward a few years. I mailed the restaurant a letter of apology, told them what I did, and included money to pay for the meal and a tip. I have just realized that I committed full-fledged plagiarism, and I am seriously breaking down over it. Throwaway account. I, 24F, graduated from my bachelor's a few years ago, and recently, I received an email from an academic to access my thesis. I recognize the name of the academic as someone whose work I closely followed in my study. Thinking of it as a compliment, I went back to reread it just to see it from her perspective before I grant her access. That's when I realized I had plagiarized her papers. I had referenced her work quite a few times, however, my sloppiness led to me eventually passing off her work as mine due to insufficient referencing, improper paraphrasing and not attributing her work enough credit. At the time of writing, I had left things too late and was mentally struggling, which led to my panicking and basically plagiarizing her work. I spoke to a professor, who I know personally, about the issue, and she thinks I'm being paranoid and that lots of bachelor's students mess up like this, but I am the only person who has read both her works and my dissertation. I am now spiraling. I planned on having an academic career, and in the process of starting my PhD. Now, I've destroyed it because of this giant mistake. I feel terrible about what I did, and extremely embarrassed. I imagine that the person whose work I plagiarized would feel hurt and angry about this, and it pains my stomach to think about it. In my head, naively thinking that because I had referenced her work a number of times, and that my Turnitin percentages were good, it would be fine. I also got an A on this paper. Now that I have a master's, and reading it with a trained eye, I see that it's absolutely not okay. And I just want to disappear. I don't know how I ever thought this was acceptable work. She has not yet read the paper, but I feel that she has requested access due to suspicion from the abstract, and morally it is eating me up. I slept with my boss. Me am 27 got the opportunity to work outside the country for 4 times the amount of money. 3 months out of the country, 1 month on leave at home. Me and my girlfriend F 25 at the time were very in love and never fought, everything was good. I started my first 3 months and we started fighting a lot over reasons that she is very anxious and overthinks way too much. We were together for 2 years and she left me after 37 days of being out of the country. The same day she left me I slept with my boss F52. Just for some context, me and my girlfriend never slept together as she was always self-conscious and anxious about everything and just couldn't let loose. The day she broke up with me I slept with my boss. We were watching movies and one thing led to another. The following day my ex-GF wants to get back together and says it was the worst mistake of her life. In that entire story I replied and said let's wait until I'm back and we can talk, as I still want to sleep with my boss as I've been deprived of any sex for 2 years. So me and my boss have been fucking everywhere we can and anytime we can, but have started to develop real feelings for each other as we do have a connection also. During all this time I've been talking to my ex and suddenly she wants to do all this kinky sexual things I want to try, as if she wants to win me back suddenly, but I feel like if she wanted to she would have when we were together. Now I'm going back in 2 weeks and I have no idea what to actually do. I stole Pop-Tarts from my high school cafeteria daily. A few years ago, my junior year of high school, when I would get lunch at school I would purposely wear a hoodie so I can sneak the Pop-Tart packet in and put my phone in the same pocket because they are both the length as each other, so it didn't seem sus. I didn't want my mom seeing I bought Pop-Tarts with my lunch money, so I just kinda ninja my way in and out without getting caught. Once, my mother-in-law was poisoning me, then I found out why. Everyone has their own nightmare-in-law story, though I couldn't imagine how bad mine would be. As it turns out, the worst thing wasn't my mother-in-law poisoning me, the worst thing was why she did it. I met Craig on one of my rare vacations and we had sort of a whirlwind relationship. We fell hard for each other and were married in a courthouse wedding within 2 months without ever meeting each other's families. Mine visited a few weeks later and after their initial shock really liked Craig. While we got moved in together and figured out married life, I got to hear more about his parents who lived near the rest of his extended family a few hours away, though we never saw them. My work schedule is rough. I work 6 to 7 days a week and my off days are a blur of appointments and errands. I think in the 2 years before I met Craig I only left the city once. I finally got a few days off so we could head to visit his family about 6 months later. His whole family came over and everyone seemed thrilled to meet me, except for his mom, Betsy. She was cold and distant, and could sit there without saying a single word to me. It was creepy, but I kept trying to spark up a conversation. On our last day he announced that we should take an afternoon hike up into the national park their house sat on the edge of. Betsy made lunch and I was changing to go out when it hit me, just waves of nausea. I wound up in the bathroom for hours that afternoon. How should I apologize when I stole from a dollar store? I stole $4 cards and a bunch of candy from a local dollar store over a period of a few weeks. The manager saw me and banned me. Stole around a $120 worth of stuff. I'm feeling bad about it. I'm planning to give back the money and the items that I have left. How do I apologize to the manager so I can be let in again? I pretended to do a trick underwater and got Star of the Week. When I was in primary school, UK, we did weekly swimming lessons at a local swimming place and I was put in the lower group because I was crap at swimming LMFAO. Anyways, I got better and moved up to the better group in the big pool. We had to do tricks and other hard stuff when I could just about swim without armbands, so you know I was not doing none of that. One week the teacher tells us to do this underwater flip roll thing and everyone did it except me. I swam down so she couldn't see me and when I came up I screamed I did it. And she clapped. I ended up getting Star of the Week and a sticker, but this one girl who was next to me in the pool low-key knew I was a fraud and gave me the side eye for the rest of the day. Respect to her for letting me live my fantasy. I've had schizophrenia for 2 years and haven't told anyone. I've been struggling with hearing voices the past 2 to 3 years. It started after I smoked weed daily for 2 years. I often hear whispers when I think I'm being watched, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. Recently they started to suggest that I do things. Most it's been good. They'll say talk to this person more or ask that girl out, etc. Sometimes they say don't let such and such disrespect you like that, do something. I can't tell my parents as my mom warned me about the link between schizophrenia and weed. She said she will refuse to help me if I claim to have it. I don't want to tell anyone else as there's so much stigma around people faking mental illness nowadays. I doubt anyone would believe me and I understand that. I'm not sure what to do if it will go away, as some days I don't hear anything but others it's very loud. I am a liar living a double life, destroying my own soul. Who am I on the surface? I'm a professional, lots of responsibility, people working under my leadership, give public presentations, etc. Family man, multiple kids, religious person, but I am not true to anyone, those in private. Living a double life. I am a liar, porn addict for 20 plus years, massage parlors, escort services, sugar dating sites, recently have even done gay things against my own attractions and beliefs. Even when I have gotten help, I've behaved for a while, then fell back into it, and lied to my therapist and support group and put the veneer back on. I've put my family at risk sharing pic of my wife online. I am so good at lying. I'm a professional liar. My wife does not know the details of my problems at all. But she knows I'm just off. And she does not have sex with me anymore, which makes it worse. This is not the life I want. I'll lie to my parents where I am to volunteer at a doggy daycare. I'm in high school and when I go home early I'll take the bus to a doggy daycare. I know the owners and they like it when I come. I have access to the building and everything, so it's okay. My parents are nice but they think I spend too much time there. They want me to focus on school and spending time with friends and family, but most of my friends can't hang out that often, and my mom and dad work, so I'll be lonely most of the time. I'm doing well in school too, so my grades are not suffering. So I'll tell my parents I'm hanging out with a friend while I'm there, helping the workers, hanging out with the older or lonelier dogs. I also find that it has really helped me mentally and I'm happier. I usually get really tired and anxious after school and spend my time feeling bad, so I figure it won't hurt. I get happier and the dogs gets attention. I've been doing this for a month now, so they know me and I think they enjoy it because they'll get really happy when they see me and either play or cuddle. Just to clarify, my parents are nice and both my mom and my dad have been there and they're fine with me going sometimes, like visiting for an hour or so once a week. The reason I have to tell them I'm with someone else is so I can go 3x a week for 2 to 3 hours to really spend time with everyone, since they aren't there every day or even week. I told lies about myself when I was younger and I'm having a hard time dealing with it. I told this person in middle school lies about myself and I'm worried about it. I told them that my mom is an addict, I don't have a father, and I have an abusive drug dealer stepfather and that I'm poor. None of these things are true at all. I told them these things a long time ago and I also told them to 2 other people and I told them the truth and it went fine, but I'm worried about this person because I heard they tried to kill themselves last year and I feel like if I tell them the truth that they try to kill themselves again. I know it's an overreaction but I worry about stuff like that. I couldn't have that guilt on my consciousness. This person also has a tough life, no father, strapped for money. I feel awful about it. Some days I'll feel okay and I'll think that it doesn't matter what they think about me and it doesn't affect my life or theirs, but I want to tell them, but I feel like they might want to kill themselves again and it would be my fault. What should I do? Am I overreacting? I could use some advice on this if you have any. Edit. I don't know if this changes anyone's opinions on anything, but I told these lies to this person over text like 2.5 years ago. I just felt like adding some details if it even matters. I messed up. I told a close friend that I smoke weed and I regret it. I've been smoking weed for 3 weeks now. I'm not going to lie, I'm underage. I've been going through a lot. In the last 3 months my aunt had died unfairly, my parents have been going through a rough patch, my school day are unnormally long and hard as I am in all the most advanced classes and take morning and afternoon classes, and with my sports I constantly have 12-hour school days. My grades and life are falling apart, so I turned to a friend that I knew smoked weed and bought some from them. I had felt relaxed for the first time in over a year. Now here's where I messed up. I have another friend who I've had a crush on for years. She's a close friend. She posted a Ask Me Anything prompt on her Snap and I asked her anonymously if she did weed. She said yes and I asked her if she would like to smoke with me without being anonymous. I instantly regretted it, but before I could delete the message she saw it. She was surprised that I smoked, as I have always been the good kid. She said she's fine with it, but I'm not so sure. I think I just lost a friend. I don't know what to do. I want to take it back but I can't, and now I just need help doing damage control. Edit. To clarify, I'm 17 and Canadian. I gave my dad a card today, and he hugged me for the first time in years. Today I, 18F, made a card for my dad, because it's Father's Day, ATL East where I live. And I currently have smallpox, so I did not have time to really get anything or make anything, so very last minute I decided to make my dad card. The card said, "Happy Father's Day, Dad. You gave me life and now I will give you this folded, decorated piece of paper. Thank you for being my dad, love you." Very simple, right? Well, in my family we don't really express out love to each other. We don't hug or say I love you, nothing like that, and I'm not even sure why. Anyways, I gave my dad the card and he looked really happy, opened it and laughed, hugged me and said he loved me too. I was a bit choked since I don't remember the last time I hugged my dad or the last time he said he loved me. I hugged him back and laughed and that was it. That was a few hours ago and now I'm feeling emotional. I love my dad so much and hearing him say that and hugging me really means a lot. He's the best dad out there and I really should say that to him more. It might sound stupid to people who hug their parents every day and express their love to each other often, but to me this is big and I just wanted to share it with someone. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Smile. I took someone's food at Panera Bread because I was hungry and had no money. I was an extremely broke college student. I commuted to save on tuition, had a job that I worked at when I was not at practice or meets for my sport. Well, my car broke down. I needed new tire rods, ball bearings and other things in order for my car to not just fall apart. This set me back a lot of money. I also had to buy new gear for my sport, and I had some other expenses that were miscellaneous. I had like minus 3.00 in my bank account, and if I did not put all my cash into my car I would not be able to make it home and drive to my paycheck the next morning. I was extremely hungry and the guy who normally snuck me into the cafeteria was not able to, which means I had approximately 13 hours until I could get my paycheck and I had not already ate in the past 10. I also knew that I had practice and I once again would feel like absolute shit for not eating beforehand. So on the way home, I remembered how DoorDash and mobile orders just sit there waiting to be claimed at most restaurants now. I walked in, pretended to look for my name, grabbed the biggest bag I could find and walked out. It was the first meal that didn't come from the cafeteria or a ramen packet in a while. It tasted amazing but it also felt wrong. I am sure the people that the food was for had a setback but ended up finally getting their food. I left my friends outside waiting for me while I pretended to get something. Me and my 3 friends were outside during break and we found a basketball. Mind you, I really dislike basketball. They all suggested we play a game since there was a basketball hoop and we were 4 people total so there would be an even number, but I really didn't want to and I was wearing a skirt. So I say to them I'm going to go get my water bottle because I was thirsty and I'd be back soon, but on my way inside I found my 2 friends and we started chatting. It was a good conversation but I lost track of time and realized I didn't come back outside for ages. When I ran out I found them returning inside since break was over and they told me they waited for me but I never came back. I feel like an awful friend for leaving them out there waiting for me while I was chatting away. They don't seem particularly angry but I feel terrible. Yes, people who have accidentally caused the death of another person. What happened? I was dating this girl that was a little dysfunctional due to being sexually abused by her grandpa and nobody knew about it. I noticed some red flags and got her to open up and tell me about it. After we broke up, I told her mom she should stop inviting grandpa over to Thanksgiving dinners due to the sexual abuse. The mom called me a liar, but after asking the other daughters/cousins about it they confirmed it was true and that they had all been molested too. After word got back to grandma, she said, "I'll take care of it." Fast forward a week and grandpa is dead. Apparently grandpa had a lot of serious medications he was taking and grandma messed with the dosage, which killed him. His death was ruled natural cause and nothing ever happened. When I was 12, I figured out how to know if Pokemon card packs contained a holographic unopened and made profit. I used to go to work with Dad every weekend for years as a kid. He worked at a market. I was really into Pokemon cards at the time, first gen. I would take whatever I earned and buy cards from a guy a few shops down from us. One day Dad was using a gram scale to weigh some jewelry and it clicked. I brought my dad's scales with me to the shop I would buy my Pokemon cards from. I proposed my theory to the shop owner. If I was right we would split a box 50-50. We weighed 50 packs of cards and sure enough there was a handful that weighed 0.1 grams more than the others. We set all of the ones with extra weight aside and opened them all. They contained a holographic. We ended up clearing through multiple boxes and extracting all the holos and leaving the rest to his unsuspecting customers. I set up a stand in my dad's shop with a folder full of holos, selling to kids walking past with their parents. I still have some of them, but they're salty water damaged. The most I made off a single card was $70 for a Charizard. This was all back in 1999 to 2000. Much different to what they're priced at now. I think I probably cleared close to $700 to $800, which was a lot for a kid at the time. I do wonder if this method would still work today. I've been trying to get fired from my job for over a month. Every night I push the limits and so far all Ida done is gotten me a raise. Seriously, the list is ridiculous and it's pure chaos. I think he doesn't fire me because he's either scared of me, laundering money, or is just really that bad at managing. I steal cigarettes, boxes of candy bars, lighters, give away products to customers. I've pusses and cleaning supplies as well as the mop bucket itself every night. A few days ago, we put a glory hole in the bathroom. After that was done, I walked out. I worked the late shift. 2 days later, here I am like nothing happened. This place has so many cameras, there's no way he's not watching that footage and just freaking out. I punched my drunk best friend in the face and he doesn't remember it. Darius, fake name, has been my best friend since freshman year of high school. We always had a special connection. Maybe it was because he was gay and I was a lesbian, so there were no expectations we had of each other. He is the closest thing I had to a brother, and with him being younger than me, I felt a responsibility over his well-being. Over the past few years, Darius has turned into an alcoholic with additional addiction problems. Over the course of these years I did everything that I could do to try and get him help, but none of it worked. He didn't want it for himself, and that is the only way that it can successfully work. I resorted to distancing myself from him, but still trying to make time to spend with him. Yesterday he was drunk, yet again. But drunk to an extreme level. Drunk to the point he tried to rip my shirt off of me because he was horny. So I punched him in the face as hard as I could and left. I've always preferred to be passive and patient with people. I never yell, I never get visibly upset, and I especially don't like to fight people. But it happened. He doesn't even remember it happening. He just thinks that he fell and hit his face. Yes, I defended myself. Yes, I have a right to be angry. But I also hurt someone that I cared deeply about and have finally realized that he is not the same person that I used to be close with anymore. I accidentally stole $200 worth of merchandise from a department store last week. I was at a Marshalls/HomeSense combo store last week and had about $200 worth of merch. I went to get a buggy but there were none, so I asked one of the cashiers if I could take the buggy by her cash. She rudely responded yes. I shop a little more and when it's time to check out, rude cashier is the one I get called to. She seemed kind of out of it but started chit-chatting with me. She begged my stuff, and asked if I needed help carrying any of it out. I had some large pillows, and I said no thanks. Then she said have a nice day, turned around and left her station. I was confused and said I still had to pay but she didn't seem to hear me, and kept walking away. The other cashiers were all swamped so I left. I have been feeling bad about it. Should I go back and tell them? What if that cashier got in trouble? I'm so nervous to go back to that store BC I'm afraid they have me pegged for a thief. WWID, a friend and I egged another friend's house in high school. Other friend's mom fell off their roof cleaning it and was wheelchair bound for years. I've been friends with, let's call him, M since the 4th grade. We were tight and did the whole best friends, sleep over, hang out all day type thing all through elementary and middle school. Freshman year we drift apart and I kind of hated him for it. I became close friends with 2 other guys that year. Let's call them, A and R. R was 1 year older and trying to date/get M's older sister who was 1 grade older than me and M. M and R hated each other. Halloween night A and R come to my house with a big bucket of eggs wearing costumes. We egg and TP a couple houses. Then we get to M's house. R unloads the rest of the eggs on M's house, I just stand there with A watching and laughing. Next day M gets called into the office and is out of school for the rest of the week. M comes in Monday all somber and emotionless and tells us his mom broke her back, neck and wrist trying to clean eggs off of their house the day after Halloween. He literally tells me later that day that he will get vengeance to the person who did this. A, R and I vow to never tell another soul about this. M and I eventually reconnect somewhere down the line and have been friends to this day at 29 years of age. His mother has fully recovered but she still complains of neck and wrist pain to this day. Still friends with A and R but they still don't talk to M or bring up the incident. Me and M both have GFS that get along and we've grown really close from that, and the more I feel connected to him the more I think about telling him. My husband died and I'm grateful for it. Me, 28, and my husband, 30, had a great relationship up until the moment we got married. He started to get emotionally and verbally abusive. It got to the point where in the middle of a fight or a meltdown he would take my phone from me to stop me from calling my therapist, she is 24/7 due to my depression, and lock himself in the room and only returning my phone the other day. I got pregnant when the red flags were still ignorable. After I gave birth, my postpartum depression hit hard. I didn't want to leave the house and was 24/7 with my baby. I thought of leaving him but was afraid he took my baby and I wouldn't be there to protect him. One day we had another argument and for the first time he said to me, "Just fucking die already," and left. I remember wishing him dead back in my mind with all my heart. About a month later COVID came. He got sick and actually died. My life gave a huge turn. I'm being social again, got in contact with my family, get along very well with his family, have a happy and healthy toddler. I do miss him sometimes and feel bad for my kid for not knowing his dad past 2 months, but a huge part of me feels relieved that I know my child is safe and it didn't take an ugly divorce for it and I don't have to share him and wonder what happens to him if I'm not there. I sometimes feel guilty for being grateful for how things turned out. A friend and I gave up our child today. He was born happy and healthy. Most beautiful baby I've ever seen in my life. Happiest day of our life is sadly also the hardest one. We wanted him so bad. Right now where we're in our lives though, barely surviving paycheck to paycheck, food stamps, and living in a bad neighborhood in one of the most expensive overpriced cities in the US, we know we can't do it with a baby. I'm sad we can't provide the life he deserves. We know the family he's going to is gonna love him so much. They have been waiting for years to have a child. They're good people, we know they are. And we know he's gonna have a good life with them. My girlfriend cried for an hour when it was time to say goodbye. She's sleeping on me right now. My heart hurts. Hurts deeper than anything I've ever felt. I only got to hold him a few minutes but it already feels like I can't breathe without him. This is for the best though. We both know it is. Hope one day we can meet again, baby boy. A friend and I gave up our child today. He was born happy and healthy. Most beautiful baby I've ever seen in my life. Happiest day of our life is sadly also the hardest one. We wanted him so bad. Right now where we're in our lives though, barely surviving paycheck to paycheck, food stamps, and living in a bad neighborhood in one of the most expensive overpriced cities in the US, we know we can't do it with a baby. I'm sad we can't provide the life he deserves. We know the family he's going to is gonna love him so much. They have been waiting for years to have a child. They're good people, we know they are. And we know he's gonna have a good life with them. My girlfriend cried for an hour when it was time to say goodbye. She's sleeping on me right now. My heart hurts. Hurts deeper than anything I've ever felt. I only got to hold him a few minutes but it already feels like I can't breathe without him. This is for the best though. We both know it is. Hope one day we can meet again, baby boy. Today I fucked up by sticking my D in crazy. Long story short, I hooked up with this girl I met online. Showed her how to make a couple drinks for an upcoming party of hers. Watched a movie and she asked me for a calf massage. Then we went to the bedroom so she could give me a back massage. Took off my shirt so she could use lotion. One thing led to another. I am 24 and she is 40-something. After we had sex, she wanted to spend the night and I said I wasn't comfortable with that. She was not happy about that. I suggested we snuggle for a bit and then I take her home. She wanted me to take her home right then. Completely silent on the whole car ride. I said sorry, I just don't sleep super well with someone in my bed because of stuff in my past. And she said I don't fucking care, you're never gonna talk to me again. As we were pulling up to her place, she said, "You know what I'm going to do tonight? Go to the emergency room," and I said, "Why?" And she said, "You can think about why, have fun in jail," and got out. Now even though I'm 100% confident in what happened in my actions, I'm still paranoid at what she could do.
Am I the a-hole for deleting my friend's wedding photos in front of them? A friend got married a few days ago and wanting to ceremony, asked if I'd shoot it for them. I told him it's not really my forte, but he convinced me by saying he didn't care if they were perfect. They were on a shoestring budget and I agreed to shoot it for $250, which is nothing for a 10-hour event. On the day of, I'm driving around following the bride. Ash goes from appointment to appointment before the ceremony, taking photos along the way. I shoot the ceremony itself, and during I'm shooting speeches and people mingling. I started around 11 a.m. and was due to finish around 7:30 p.m. Around 5 p.m. food is being served, and I was told he cannot stop to eat because I need to be photographer. In fact, they didn't save me a spot at any table. I'm getting tired, and at this point kinda regretting doing this for next to nothing. It's also unbelievably hot. The venue is an old Veterans Legion, and it's like 110F, and there's no AC. I told the groom I need to take off for 20 minutes to get something to eat and drink. There's no open bar or anything. I can't even get water, and my 2 water bottles are long empty. He tells me I need to either be photographer or leave without pay. With the heat, being hungry, being generally annoyed at the circumstances. Asked if he was sure, and he said yes. so I deleted all the photos I took in front of him, and took off saying I'm not this photographer anymore. If I was to be paid to 50, honestly, at that point I would have paid $250 just for a glass of cold water, and somewhere to sit for 5 minutes.
What was your partner's weird kink you weren't ready for? It wasn't a partner, but a Tinder meet-up. She asked if she could tie me up and whip me a little while holding this little nine-tails whip thing. I agreed normally down to try anything once. It was pretty awesome at first, giving someone else complete control, and the pain was manageable. Then she proceeded to put down the little whip and grab this Indiana Jones style bull whip and thrash my back with it. It broke the skin and I got blood all over her bed. She got me with it twice before I pleaded for mercy, and she untied me and apologized. But I wasn't ready for something like that. Got dressed and left shortly after. I still have the 2 scars on me back years later and haven't been on Tinder since. Dressing me up like them and acting out a scenario off being a clone. I had one girlfriend that wanted to lick my eyeball, and another lick my armpit. I didn't care for either act. Bloodline. She did my brother and cousin. My ex-husband was turned on by the idea of me with another guy. It led to a divorce, calling me by her ex-boyfriend's name.
I slept with my girlfriend's mom 2 years ago. I can't tell her because I know she'll dump me and it'll probably end her parents' marriage. 2 years ago when I was 19, met this woman while I was working as a personal trainer. She was in her 40s and looked like a 25-year-old. She took an interest in me and invited me out a number of times, and we had sex a few times. After one of our meetups, she said it was wrong for someone of her age to be with me because I was toying and changed gyms. My girlfriend and I have been together for just under 1 year. She's amazing, and I love her so much. 2 months ago I met her family for the first time, and it was a shock. She took me to the house, where I had hooked up with a woman, and I felt like I was being pranked. Before I see her mom, it hits me. I have a type, and they both fit that type, so it makes sense. I've been hooking up with a single mom, and I'm now with her daughter. Then her mom and dad pop out, and we both almost shit ourselves. I meet her parents. They've been married for 20 years. I realize I had been a married woman's toy. I feel incredibly ashamed. Later that week, her mom finds my number and tells Method I can never speak of what happened. She says that me girlfriend will hate me forever because Lel be the one who broke up her parents. So now, I'm stuck keeping this secret. She invited me to spend Thanksgiving and with her family in, since my family is 1,000 miles away, and I already told her, don't plan on going home. I don't really have an excuse to not go. So now I'm going to have to sit there at a table and enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with the woman I had an affair with, her husband, and her daughter whom I am now in love with. They got a type too. Sounds like fun. Pass the gravy.
Drugs are destroying me. Yo. I'm turning 15 in a couple of days and I'm nothing but addicted junkie. I've done nothing with my life. My grades are horrible. I don't think I've passed a school year with anything higher than Fs. I don't have hobbies. And I'm not going to lie, I don't have very many friends either. What have I been doing then? Drugs. Molly, weed, Benadryl, Adderall, coke, hairspray, fuck me, even fentanyl. There's nothing I can do to stop the craving. I've tried cold turkey, I've tried slowly easing out. Nope. I've struggled with other things too, cutting, tattooing myself, punching my ribs until they are pink, swollen and bruised. I'm so fucking dumb about everything. I'm so dumb for doing this to myself. I'm dumb for taking it too far. Jesus, I'm so dumb academically. Today my teacher was helping me with algebra because I had a missing assignment. He got so frustrated with me because I had to pull out a calculator for simple multiplication. I don't know how to divide. I've tried and I can't. My brain is permanently foggy and I have really bad memory issues. It's definitely the drugs. Anyways, thank you for reading my cringe vent. Advice would be greatly appreciated. Edit. I've never had so many people believe in me in such a short time. I'm going to tell my parents in the morning, they'll take me to the hospital and everything will get sorted out. I don't want to do this anymore, the whole cycle of wake up and do drugs. I don't want to become homeless and live on some street, rotting away. I'm not sure if I'll be able to have my phone or anything in there, but if I'm not, then I will give an update as soon as I can. Thanks y'all, take care. Another edit. Wow, I finally did it. I told my parents about my addiction. Running on no sleep and 2 cups of green tea. I made them breakfast and sat them in the living room. They were starting to get a worried look at this point because they knew something was up. I was just standing there shaking and crying. I did that get all stiff and mumble thing I always do when I get overwhelmed and mumbled, "Mom, Dad, I'm addicted to drugs and I really need help." They just hugged me and wiped my tears for a while. We talked more and I opened up about how I tried to quit before and failed. My mom said she had her suspicions but only thought it was an occasional smoke of weed and nothing like the level what I do. They said that they are disappointed in me for lying about money. They said that they were disappointed that I didn't talk to them sooner. They asked me who sells to me. They said they are going to look into rehab clinic for me. Goddamn, I love my parents, they are wise and they approached it really well. No yelling or anything. My mom cried. Like an uncontrollable sob. It put me in my place seeing that. The only thing I was thinking was go to your room before they search it and hide what you have left, and you made them disappointed in you. What if they don't love you anymore? Holy shit, did it take so much restraint to just not hide them? I watched them flush them, it was painful. My motivation is getting clean. It's going to be so hard to stay on track, but I think I'm finally ready to start again. I'm really worried that if I don't have drugs I'll go back to cutting. I don't know what to do about that now, but all I know is that I'm damn proud of myself for doing that, and I really hope clinics aren't as bad as they are on television. Thank you all so much. I wouldn't have done this without the push and motivation. I'll update this if there's anything more. I kicked a hitchhiker out of my car in the middle of the desert. About 8 months ago, I was driving alone on a trip to visit my parents. Most of this drive goes through a desolate desert with barely any vegetation. Approximately an hour into the drive I saw a 20-30-year-old with shorts, a t-shirt, backpack, and a water bottle giving me the thumbs up on the side of the road. Considering the road is less used nowadays, I decided to help him out because it didn't seem like he would see anyone else that day. At first, he seemed quite normal at first, but after we introduced each other and had a couple of conversations, he started to act strangely. He would occasionally flick his head twice and make a face, but would continue with the conversation like nothing happened. About 30 minutes after driving him, he started talking politics and was very adamant on his way of viewing things as being correct. I wasn't afraid of sharing my own thoughts and opinions, so I did as respectfully as I could. Without warning, he cut me off mid-sentence and screamed at the top of his lungs. I was shocked and really didn't know what to do. Looking back, he was obviously on drugs. He pushed me past the point of comfort in my own vehicle at that point, so I pulled over and ordered him to get out of my car. He took his stuff and once outside I zoomed off, leaving him at least 30 kilometers away from the nearest town. Later, when I arrived at my parents' house, I looked over to the passenger side door, and he left his water bottle. I assumed he was fine, but who knows, maybe I killed some druggie because I didn't look to my right for a couple of hours. I staged a robbery to steal from the store where I work. I work for a chain of 24-hour stores. Some time ago, for obvious reasons, I don't want to say exactly how long, I was working overnights. I hated it. It made me fully nocturnal to the point that the sun actually burned my eyes when I went out during the day. I hated the store, hated my town, and hated all of my co-workers. Because of all this, I was bordering on suicidal, so I would fantasize about just taking the money and leaving for a good while I stocked shelves. Did this every night for months, but I knew jail would be worse, so I never did it. Well, one day I was venting to a good friend about how I was feeling, basically telling him a lengthier version of that first paragraph. I figured he would tell me I'm going crazy, and I should quit and find a new job I don't hate so much. Instead, he and I came up with the idea to stage a robbery and take the money together. We took about 2 weeks to plan, and I even called out of one shift so we could hammer out the fine details LMFAO. The plan was that he would come in wearing a full face mask, long sleeves, and gloves so that you couldn't tell his ethnicity on the cameras. I also knew all of the camera dead spots, so we planned his escape route in such a way he couldn't really be tracked by them. We had the whole thing rehearsed and ready as if we were putting on a play. So the night finally comes, and I had him wait until my coworker went on break so we wouldn't have an extra variable to plan around. He walks in during our deadest time of the night and we start really playing up the whole thing. He's pointing this fake gun in my face, I'm putting my hands up, shaking my head, all that. He has me lead him to the office where he makes me empty the safe for him, then he has me empty the registers for him on his way out. I give him a few-minute head start while I pretend to be rattled and catch my breath, pretend I can't stop shaking enough to dial 911, and finally go alert my coworker that we were robbed and I was too freaked out to do it myself. The cops show up and take my statement. I told them he spoke with an accent that he did not. I fed them a lot of false info to take any suspicion away from my friend. My coworker saw nothing from the break room, so he couldn't give any info himself. It's corporate policy to give robbers whatever they want, so I got in no trouble at all. As a matter of fact, they paid me a bonus for handling it so well. They also took me off overnight shifts. Later, I told them I wasn't comfortable here anymore, so I put in for a transfer to the town I'd always wanted to live in. That process got expedited due to the situation. I'm not confessing to get it off my chest so much as I am because I couldn't be happier I did it. My life turned around immediately, and I have never been happier since I was a kid. Used the money to finally start college. My BF is now my GF and is obsessed with being trans. I am just a run-of-the-mill black manic pixie dream girl. I'm pansexual, 21 years old and silly, very nice and snarky. Usually accepting. My partner 35 has came out to me as a trans woman. We've dated for a year now and are in love. I'm experiencing the ick right now. It's happened a little after a month of her coming out to me, and at first I dealt with it healthily. I cried, reached out for support to cope with everything going on, and don't get me wrong, I love her. I use her new name as much as possible, call her she/her, but I can't stop feeling disturbed when she talks about her past self as a man, saying that he was disgusting, ugly, and keeps using her drunkenness as an excuse, or her childhood. It was bad but not that bad. Some have it much worse. There are kids getting beat on, raped and murdered by their parents. None of that happened to her. Every time she talks about him, who she used to be, I just run silent so I don't say anything to upset her. She keeps talking about I can't wait to chop it off, I can't wait to start HRT, I'm so excited, and I get it. I know she's excited, but now it's non-stop, it's all she can talk about. She even tells me how I should act as a cisgender woman, what ladies should do. How can you tell me how I should be when you were the one who grew up male? She is purely obsessed with being trans, and sometimes, okay, most times I just want to talk about normal things like movies to watch on Netflix, where to go on a picnic, or how our week was, but lately it's trans, and I'm just waiting for it to wear off. I feel awkward about her sudden transition because she's not good at committing to anything. She's phased through so many things. I tell her to walk before she can run. Within 2 weeks of coming out to me, I was the first person she'd came out to. She told her whole family and friends, and I just thought that was a little fast. She needs to be patient, and I can't help but get the feeling she's running into this because she's scared she'll back out one day. Another thing that bothers me is she keeps saying thanks for not leaving me and calling me a freak like someone else probably would, and it makes me feel trapped, like I'm this big anchor. She relies on me a lot to help her be a woman, but I'm not a walking handbook for becoming a woman. I'm just a human being, and she treats me like a guidebook. She makes stupid and offensive jokes like, "Can I borrow your tits?" And it makes me so uncomfortable. I tried to be fair and say, well, I'm black, they don't match yours, and she says I'll bleach them. Just please let me have your tits. I can't wait for mine to come in and for my penis to shrink. I hate it and I want it gone. Snip snip. And I cringe when I think of her mutilating herself or keep bringing it up every 5 seconds. It's I can't wait for it to be gone. Like, yeah, I get it. You want a vagina. That's great, I support that. Just shut up for a minute and talk about something that isn't trans. And now when we're intimate, the only thing that gets her off is having a vagina herself. She's too envious of mine and uses me as a doll or picture book for what she imagines her future anatomy to be life.
Today, my next door pregnant neighbor knocked on my door. Around 7 p.m. today, I heard some knocking on my door. I opened it and it was my next door pregnant neighbor. She was, I think, in her 7th or 8th month. She was holding a small plate in her hand. In a very shy voice, she asked me if I can give her some of whatever I was cooking because she liked the smell. I think pregnant women sometimes have strong cravings and they cannot resist it. Anyway, she was shy and apologized a lot for her request since we don't know each other. I laughed and told her it is okay, smile. I was cooking a traditional meal from my country and the recipe has olive oil, garlic, jalapenos and some spices. I think the smell was nice. I gave her some of my dinner, then she left. I watched her walking home like a cute little penguin who's happy with her successful little hunting. I felt really happy too for some reason.
People who have almost been killed, what were your last thoughts before almost dying? I was in a car accident when I was 18. As I lost control, the car was drifting from one side to the other for what felt like eternity and was ultimately to be stopped by a ditch and a big tree. The whole thing probably only lasted a few seconds before the car flipped over and I lost consciousness for a moment. But I remember thinking, oh God, this is actually happening, and as I processed what was going to happen next, this is gonna hurt. In the end, I only had whiplash and some bruises while my car was totaled, but I was absolutely convinced that this was going to be the end. After the adrenaline wore off, I broke down crying and felt incredibly relieved that I had decided to not take my dog with me. Something had stopped me from bringing her that day, and I'm still so thankful for that.
I physically harmed my nephews and I deeply regret it. This isn't one isolated incident. This was several. I'm younger than my sister by 14 years. She had her first son when I was 5 years old and her second son when I was 7. She lived with me and my parents for the majority of my childhood, and so did my nephews. My parents were very neglectful and so was my sister. Taking care of my nephews was my job almost immediately. When I was 12, I was forced to share a Jack and Jill style bathroom with them. They'd stay up all night screaming, yelling and jumping around. They would sneak into my room and steal my things and my parents didn't do anything about it. It got to the point that was sleep deprived, juggling school, kids and my parents' expectations. If they'd get too loud and wake me up, I'd threaten them. Eventually it led to hitting. At some point I realized what I was becoming and what I was doing and I tried to distance myself from them as much as I could. I know I hurt them and I did irreversible damage. I will never forgive myself for that. I don't expect them to ever forgive me either. It happened again when I was 18. I had a full-time job and my sister moved back in with us. I was trying to get my own apartment but all my money and time outside of work was spent taking care of kids that weren't mine. I was expected to take care of them full-time as well as take care of the house while my sister sat back and relaxed. I snapped. I hit them when they talked back to me more than once. I know their mother did it too. I took the first chance I had to move away and have stayed away since. I've personally given them so much trauma when they needed me the most. I don't ever plan on having kids of my own. I can't trust myself to not repeat my mistakes. I'm a monster. I hate that version of myself and I will regret harming them till the day I die. I love them so much and I hurt them so badly. I'm 32 now. The only person I've told about this is my husband. Has tried to console me but I know I don't deserve it. I feel guilty for even letting him try to comfort me. Update. It's been an emotional roller coaster but for those interested, I reached out to them via email. After consulting my therapist, they accepted my apologies and things are good. We've been playing video games together in our spare time the past couple of days and I'm really enjoying the time I've spent with them. They have already gotten therapists and are refusing to let me pay for anything. I've set aside a portion of my savings for them so if they're ever in a bind, I can help them financially. I will be helping the oldest welcome their little girl into the world in August and I couldn't be more excited. I still don't plan on having children of my own, but I'm looking into going to school to become an elementary teacher. My dream job. Thank you so much for all the kind words. I truly never expected so many people to be so kind to me. It means the world and it's definitely changed my life for the better.
Something my daughter told me terrorism. This past year, my family went on a sabbatical in Anatherkantry. My daughter 4 talks a lot about returning to our old house, and something she said recently gave me chills. Daughter, when we go back, can I sleep in mommy's room? Me, oh, backbone, yes. Sometimes we can have sleepovers, but don't you remember, you have a huge bed to sleep in your room. All your toys are in there, your stuffed animals. Daughter, but that guy, remember? I wake up at night because he's there with me. Me instantly freaking out. What? No, I don't remember. What man? Daughter, he sits in the corner. He's all black. He just sits by me. What? What does his face look like? Daughter, he has no eyes, but I think he has a mouth. Me in shock. Well, you can definitely sleep in my room. What the heck is that? Also, how is she so nonchalant about some terrifying thing in her room like this? Your daughter is not a racist. She is seeing a shadow person and shadow people are not nice. Get her some help, find a medium. Get some help now. Get yourself a priest in that joint. I would say this stuff to my parents as a small child, but it was never true. I just wanted to be interesting enough for them to give me attention. Man in the basement. When I was about 16, I was babysitting for a family friend. He took the girl right outside to play on the swing set in the backyard, and it was getting pretty dark. Around 8 or 8:30, I started getting a weird feeling, like we were being watched. I looked around and didn't see anyone, but I was still freaked out, so I took her inside since she had to go tobe soon anyway. I put her to sleep at around 9 and start watching TV in the living room. About 10 minutes later, hear rustling outside of the house. I stupidly go to check it out, and I don't see anything, so I just assume it was an animal and go back inside. About 20 minutes later, hear footsteps from Maddie's room, so I go upstairs to put her back to bed. I open her door and see that she is still fast asleep in her bed. It's dark in the room, but I can see some stuff because of the light from the window. I look in the corner to see Theshadawi's silhouette kneeling in the corner. I immediately turn on the light to see an actual man there. He tries to run out the door, but I kick him in the nuts. I call the police, and it turns out the man had been living in the basement for about 6 months, going in and out through a hole in the side of the house, and he had been watching family while they were outside and while they were sleeping. I haven't babysat since. This is why I always have a dog. My dead cousin has been commanding Google Home to play some of her favorite songs. My cousin F14 just passed away a couple weeks ago. I was very close to her and we play music on my speaker. Last week, I was chilling in the living room. Out of nowhere, a screen got turned on and went to Hulu under her profile name. No one had the remote we've looking for. The remote for days. Fast forward couple days later, I was laying on my bed out of nowhere. Google Home started playing some of her favorite songs 3 songs back to back. I'm freaking out. Never experienced shit like this in me entire life. What do you guys think? Is she trying to send a message or trying to freak me out? Few days before she dies we watched 2 Paranormal Activity movies and she always tried to scare me. I've heard that some people don't actually know they've been dead. My dad's friend is a nurse and she would hear nurses call bells ring at empty beds where people have already died and sent to the morgue. She would say Totham, you're not here anymore, and the ringing would stop. Late response, but my grandpa passed and I got his Alexa. Came home to military music playing in my room one day. He really enjoyed it. No one else could have been in my room, and it definitely wasn't on my playlist. Felt like a way off him communicating saying he was checking in and doing alright. Tell her hello and talk with her. She will be leaving soon. Where's she going? To the light. The one day I woke up late may have saved me life. There's a knock at the door, and mom opens it to find Amin in a bus driver uniform. He explains that he's a substitute driver, because the regular driver called in sick. He says he knows he's a few minutes early, since he wanted to get an early start on the route since he didn't know it well. Mom explains to him that she was gonna take me to school since we woke up late. He gets visiblicit, upset, and says that he can wait a few minutes since he's already running ahead of schedule. My mom insists that no, I won't be ready to go in a few minutes, and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed angry about this, but turned it around and got back in the bus and left. I returned to eating my breakfast, and still don't have menstrual clothes on at this point. But at 7 o'clock a.m. sharp, another bus pulls up to my house. Mom thinks this is word and goes outside to talk to them. She comes back inside looking terrified, but doesn't really say anything about it, and tells me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but mom would end up telling me a few years later, when she went to the second bus, she found that it was being driven by my regular bus driver, and it was full of all the other kids that are usually on the route. The other bus was empty, by the way. Mom asks the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. I never called in sick. There is no substitute driver on my route, he says. The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic, and told my mom to go inside and call the police, which shedded, without me knowing, and report this incident. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a blank who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would have never made it to school or back home. And if mom hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus.